Hello everyone, welcome to the new episode of Professionals Unplugged. I am your host Utkarsh Shukla and let me introduce you to my guest Maya. Maya, thank you so much for accepting our invite.
Thank you very much and nice to meet you.
Same here Maya, thank you so much. So let's start with our very basic question. Can you please introduce our audience about yourself? Like who you are, what work you do, anything you want to talk about yourself.
Sure. So I'm Maya, and I consider myself actually a citizen of the world because I have lived all around the world. I was born in Macedonia, and when I was 12 years old, during the war of Yugoslavia, my family immigrated to New Zealand. And so I did my second part of my life, or I should say my childhood in New Zealand. And then I moved to Australia. From Australia, I moved to England. From England, I moved back to Australia and then to Dubai. So currently I'm in Dubai. And so I'm the kind of person that is following my passion, following my heart. And for me, like the most important thing is that I am being of service to the world. And so, in whichever way I can be of service to the world, to humanity, I'm there.
That's pretty awesome. I think you have covered a lot of countries and you are saying you are serving humanity. So, can you please enlighten us on the same, like how you are doing that work and what are the challenges that you face in your day-to-day life for this?
Yes, I mean, I started my career as a maritime lawyer. So actually, I started working in New Zealand when I was 18 years old. And I did all my qualifications on the side. And by the time I was 22, I was already a manager. So something that, let's talk from the professional and corporate perspective, something that really drives me is the people, the connections. And I have a big passion for management, for leadership. Like I said, I became a manager when I was only 22 years old. And so some of my biggest challenges in life have been, um, the successful management of people and successful leadership. So that is something that has always been my driver. And and that's actually why I came to Dubai as well, because I was headhunted for a job here in Dubai and to work as leader in my industry. So I very much like to be of service. Like if you're familiar with servant leadership, that's the kind of style that I'm passionate about from the corporate perspective, servant leadership, compassionate leadership, and conscious leadership. So this is how I aim to be of service by being an example of a compassionate and conscious leader. And as my colleagues would say, actually, one colleague of mine always used to say to me that I'm like the sunshine and that I spread happiness around. He said, wherever you go, you spread happiness around. And actually, I have a book. I'm a published author, and I have written and published two books, and I'm about to publish my third book now. But my first book, it's called Unveiling the Path to Happiness. And so, actually, this is how I am here to serve the world by spreading a little bit of happiness everywhere I go. And whichever way I can do that, through compassion. Like I said, in the corporate world, I aim to do that through servant leadership, compassionate and conscious leadership, because this is something that actually makes people happy rather than stressed and miserable at work. So, um, I aim to bring a little bit of happiness, a little bit of sunshine, a little bit of color, and a little bit of soulfulness to the corporate world. because I have worked in so many different organizations around the world, predominantly in the corporate sector. And typically, like you walk in an office and people don't look very happy. They don't look happy. Many people look miserable, they look bored, they're sitting in front of their computers, which is not a very healthy environment for a human. And it's definitely not what we as human beings were designed to do. And so, if I can find any way to bring a little bit of soulfulness to the corporate world, then I feel like, that's my job done, that's my purpose.
That's pretty awesome of you. I think you have covered that pain point in the corporate's life where everyone is just coming and sitting in front of their desktop, started doing their work. So I have few questions regarding the same. As you told us that you are working as a servant leader, right, or servant leadership. Okay. So can you just enlighten us like how a day looks like in your life and how you try to do this job, like how to make sure that people are happy while they are working? Or I know you must have covered it in your book, but if you just can give us a summary of how those things are achieved and how us day
Mhm.
looks like in a servant leader's life.
Yeah. Well, for me, from my personal experience, it's first of all, it's very important to have the right people in the right jobs. So, whenever I'm hiring someone, I want to understand more about them. Why are they here? Why are they doing this job? Why is this job of passion to them? Because, first of all, I think it's very important to have the right people in the right role. So for me, it's very important that my staff are being themselves. Because if you want to be happy and successful in something you are doing, you really need to be doing that from something deeper in you that is your why, right? So I often want to find out about my employees and my team members. Why are you doing this job? What is your why? And so I try to understand them. And then I try to understand what are their strengths and what are their weaknesses. And so, of course, I want to give everybody a task in which that is their strength. And if there is any weakness that they feel they have, then I would organize a training. So, how can I, as a leader, be of service to my team? Okay, what can I do within my power? What kind of training do I need to provide for them? What kind of manager do I need to be for them? Because everybody has a different management style, everybody works differently. What it is that they need from me for them to be successful in their job, and how they can also apply their creativity, because every human being has its own gift. And so I want to encourage everybody to be using this gift in their work, because that's what is going to make them successful, and in turn that's going to have an impact on the company. So how can they be themselves? How can they apply their own creativity and their own talents? And what can I do to support them on that journey? And then, to be compassionate towards them, to understand their life circumstances, to know them on a deeper level. What is it that works for them? For some people, coming to the office every day works for them. For others, they prefer to work from home. Some are extroverted, they need people around them. Others are introverted. It's better for them to stay home in their room and work from their room. So being understanding and compassionate to everyone, because everyone is unique. And I think acknowledging that is very important, and treating every single person at work like they are unique is important, because that makes them feel seen, understood, appreciated.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. I think these are very valid point to make sure that employee feel like they are a valid resource in their own company and they are heard by their management. think these are the key points that any employee look while they are joining a new company or while they are working in a company. But I just have one question regarding the same. Suppose there can be n number of employees, and generally in corporate there are more than 100 or 200 employees in a company. So in that case, it might become a bit difficult for one person or say 4 or 5% to manage those hierarchy level below them, right? So in that case, how things are being getting managed, or any thoughts on the same, like when there are too many people around you, how you make sure that everyone they are being heard of?
Mm. Yeah, that's a very good question, actually. So, I think it's very important for a leader or a manager to structure their team in such a way that they have different layers and they have different management reporting structures. So, for example, one manager should have no more than 7 to 8 direct reports. So what I have done is I have created, where I have more employees, I create teams, and then I have a team leader for each. And then I make sure that there is a team leader, a supervisor, assistant manager for each team. So I have 7 to 8 direct reports. They have 7 to 8 direct reports, like that. That is a lot more manageable.
Yep, I think that's pretty awesome to have 7 to 8 people for every person to be reporting to them, and not increasing the size by them, so that it will be easy for each one of them to be able to communicate with their teams. And every leader should be set with that mindset, like you need to hear what they need and what are their pros and cons, rather than pros and cons,
Mm.
what they are good at or what they are not too much good at, so that they can be provided proper training for this, right?
Mm. Yeah.
So I just wanted to know like how you came up to this role, like when you got to know like this is the main thing you need to work on, because you told us you have gone through different countries, have worked on different streams. So at what point you got to know this, that this is the job you should go ahead with, being a servant leader or being into the leadership? So what was that point in your life when you thought this is the role you
Mm.
want to do?
That's a very good question. I think so. There are two parts, two sides to that. The first one is um, the leaders that inspired me in my work. So, for example, I have 3 or 4 managers that I had that really inspired me. And then I had 3 or 4 managers that didn't inspire me. And so I learned valuable lessons from the bad management that I experienced. So in each company that I experienced bad management, I would come out of there and think, okay, that is a bad management. So now I know not to do that and not to recreate that. So basically, I used the good managers that inspired me, and I picked the things from them that I personally like, that work for me, that I think are good. And then I used the bad examples in order to, as an example, what not to do and how can I change that. So typically that's how it has been for me. And at what point I think, yeah, that's a very good question. I think it is from one job that I had in Australia. And I went to have a conversation with my manager, openly, honestly, explaining to him how I felt, what I wanted, what works for me. And I was not heard. I really didn't feel heard in that conversation. I didn't feel heard. I didn't feel understood. I didn't feel appreciated. And so I left my manager's office crying and then handing to him my resignation without having any other job. Or, in fact, at that particular time, I was booked to go to India for a retreat because um, one way I keep myself happy and healthy and take care of myself and my well-being is by going on retreats in different parts of the world. So every 3 months, I take a week off and I go on a retreat. And in those retreats, I typically meet a lot of other entrepreneurs and I meet a lot of leaders around the world that are there for the same reason, to find some peace, happiness, and do some activities outside of the office. And so I was booked to go on a retreat in India with my yoga teacher. Like 1 year ago, I had booked this trip. So I said to my manager, I need a holiday. I'm taking this week to take care of myself and I'm going to a retreat. He didn't want to give me the holiday. So that was one reason. He didn't want to give me the holiday. I knew for myself that if I was to cancel that retreat, I would have lost a lot of money. And then I would have been so miserable and so unhappy in my job that I wouldn't be performing. So, what is the point of trying to stop me from going on this retreat? I'm going there because I need it for me to take care of myself and my well being so that when I come back to my job, I can continue. And if that right is taken away from me, what is my purpose to stay there as an employee being unhappy and miserable and not interested anymore in the work? An employee then becomes disengaged, right? And when you have disengaged employees, you cannot have a successful company, right? And so that retreat was very important to me, and taking care of myself, knowing myself, that's very important to me. And when my manager didn't give me that, that's when I decided to resign. And so I went to India. I spent 1 week in India, in Rishikesh. And that was the time when I started writing. Actually, I was finishing my book. So I decided to finish my book. And then I decided to publish my book. And that's when I decided to become a coach and an entrepreneur and work for myself. Shortly after publishing my book, I was recruited, headhunted to come to Dubai and take, have that job in leadership here. And so I did that for almost 3 years. And again, I learned good things and bad things in that job. And now, again, I have developed my own company called Ocean Mediation, where I'm providing coaching for leaders and also mediation services, which is mediation is an alternative dispute resolution where you help people resolve and manage conflict so that they can find peace and basically have a peaceful resolution and have peace in their heart and peace with other people.
I think that's pretty awesome. You have discovered those pain points in your corporate life and then decided working on the same. And at the end, you founded your company where you are trying to cover those pain points in other corporates' life or in other companies. So I think that's
Yes.
the best thing that anyone can do. You have found the problems in the world. Now you are trying to solve them. And firstly, you try to solve them as an employee. Now you are an employer that is helping people all around the world. So that's a pretty amazing
Yes.
journey of you.
Yes.
Yeah. So I think we are done with our questions as well. So thank you so much, Maya, for joining in. It
Okay.
was really a great experience talking to you and knowing your insights. Thank you so much.
Okay. Thank you very much. Pleasure to be here.